My name's Nash. I'm a developer relations engineer at IBM, although I mostly work on a project called Langflow, which is an open source agent builder using drag and drop. I'll show you a little bit of it later, but it is not really the primary topic of this talk. I just happen to like working on that as well and telling you about it. If you at all do want to find me on the internet, I'm sort of Phil Nash everywhere. Just find that. Connect. I love to connect with you. If you do have any questions at any point, always happy to try and help out. So this talk starts with a warning. It's actually quite funny, right? The first talk for the evening started with like, this stuff was done a year ago, and it's like, this has been, like, we've superseded this already, it's fine. And then the last one had like tiers of support, of like no support, or like alpha support, and maybe, and then yes, into production. And today, this final talk will be like, do not use any of this. That's not entirely true. Some of it you can, but like, there's definitely a warning there. But it is an AI talk. The AI revolution is happening. We are pretty excited about that, I think. And we've seen a lot of it on the server side. It's actually been genuinely great to see that, the talk on fine-tuning and like turning models into something you can actually use 99% accuracy, 96% accuracy, 99%, fantastic. But that's all in on the server side. Langflow sense on the server side, it's fine. But the AI revolution is finally, I think, coming to the web as well. That's what I'm excited about. Because as a web developer, building stuff in browsers that is going to kind of be able to work on people's devices in front of them inside their own device, very excited about that. And this talk was also inspired by my summer holiday, although I went to Spain, or this says, if you don't know Spanish, I went on holiday to Spain this winter, which of course was summer in Spain. It was way too hot. No, it was one of those times where Europe had a heat wave, and it actually was a heat wave rather than just being like 26 degrees. What are we going to do? So I went on holiday to Spain. I used to study Spanish back in school, but school is way too long ago for me to have remembered much of it. And so I wanted to find out, given the capabilities that I knew were existing in some browsers now, whether I could build a translation app going from speech in either English or Spanish into to be translated to the opposing language and spoken back out of the application using just the web platform that would work inside the browser and work offline as well. Because, you know, if you're in another country, you don't necessarily have all the data that you're used to as well. So could I do this? What do you need for this kind of thing? Well, like I said, we're looking to be able to talk to it, speech to text. We need to be able to translate stuff, and then we need to be able to turn that translated text back into speech again. And fairly simple, right? So traditionally, the web has actually had the web speech API for a long time. And I'm going to show you a bit of that. It's very old stuff. This is stuff that you could use today if you wanted to. And then you would have some kind of translation API, maybe something in Google Cloud. But that's not going to work inside the browser. That's our problem here. As an aside, of course, large language models, as well as turning property searches into structured JSON, they're also quite good at just translating between different languages. And this is the bit where I do get to show you what's going on in, hey, Langflow. This is Langflow. I built a very simple flow for this one. It has Gemini 2.5 Flash in there. It has a prompt that tells, that's very small, but if I bump it up, it doesn't go any bigger, so I'll just read that out. It says you're a language translation expert. You should determine whether the input is English or Spanish, and then translate that input to the other language. And then I give it two examples, one where the input is English, one and the output Spanish, and the other way around. And that was enough to have this little flow, which, yeah, powered by this model in the middle, that if I talk to it, can't make that bigger either. Anyway, at the bottom it says, what a lovely evening for a meetup, and if I send that off to the model, it says, que noche tan agradable para un encuentro. Close enough. But, yeah, if I put that back in there in Spanish, it comes out with probably something slightly different. What a pleasant night for a get-together. Well, that's actually, how nice. It not only translated it, it actually improved my English. So Thanks, Gemini, showing me up there. Anyway, that's Langflow. It's really easy to kind of explore and experiment with these things. There's loads of modules and things that you can pick from to kind of build agentic or language model-based applications. And yeah, LLMs are good at translation, so that's kind of exciting. So the Web Speech API, like I said, has been around for a while, and we have two parts to it, speech recognition and speech synthesis. Kotlin multi-platform is much easier to say than speech synthesis. So speech recognition is fairly straightforward, which is nice. You create yourself a speech recognition object. You add an event listener for the result of any recognitions. You tell it what language you're talking in, and then you start it. And as it starts to get results from hearing what you're saying, you receive that in the event listener. It's genuinely this 5 lines of code. It's almost done. Obviously, you probably want to replace the console.log with something interesting, but like it works. And so if I were to use that, I have it built into my slides. They're running in the browser. I can just talk now to my slides, and we'll start seeing the results come up on screen. And you can see that sometimes it's in italics, and that's where it's a temporary result. And I've made this slide work such that once it is not a temporary result, it then goes into regular text. And now I have to stop it because otherwise it's going to subtitle the rest of the talk. Stop. Cool. So that works quite well, I think. That's kind of cool. How about speech synthesis? It actually has an even worse API in which you have to create the object speech synthesis utterance. I have to practice this before every time I turn up. Speech synthesis utterance. You create yourself a new utterance. You set the language on that utterance. You can set a voice on it as well, and then you can get it to speak it. And this is actually a bit of a cheat by the browsers because they basically just pass it on down to the operating system. And so the voices that you have available to you are the voices that the operating system will make available, which I think is hilarious. So I'm just going to check I've got the sound probably working. Yeah, that should work. And if I make this speak in Australian.
Hello everyone, this is a demo.
Not bad. Let's say something more interesting like, I liked the Vietnamese food this evening. Sure. But let's not do it in Australian, that's boring. Because there's so many hilarious voices in Mac OS. It's incredible. One of my favorites is bad news. Can you imagine what bad news might well sound like? Of course you can't. It makes no sense. It sounds like this.
I like the Vietnamese food this evening.
Got the right length line for that. That was quite good. There is, of course, good news as well. Good news, which is just the same but higher.
I like the
it's a slightly different tune.
Vietnamese food this evening.
Lovely. It's glorious that people are going to love these voices. We're going to need these in the browser, in the operating system. There's an enormous number of grandmas and grandpas. Yeah, they're not actually that good, so they're not fun to show. And then you get to the weirdest ones. My second favorite voice is called Jester. It is a US voice, and it just laughs its way through whatever you tell it to say, which is bizarre and hard to understand. But the most bizarre and also most hard to understand is my favorite, Bubbles, in which there is speech in there, but it's mostly bubbles. Yeah, I know. What? Okay. If you are on Windows or Linux, you might not have access to Bubbles, and I'm sorry about that. But my goodness, it's right there on the Mac, and I encourage you to use it whenever you can. So, stupid voices aside, we've got translation to deal with. And translation is not something we can do within the browser, at least traditionally. It's certainly not something that has existed as long as the Web Speech API has done. And so, at this point, we take a little aside to AI on the web. Now, running AI models on the web is something that you can kind of do using using things like TensorFlow.js or Hugging Face's Transformers.js library. Those things have been around for a while, or Transformers.js is probably the most exciting one at the moment. But every time you do that, you have to download the models yourself, and you do them for your own website. And that's cool. But if you want a language model, even a small large language model, they are a number of gigabytes in size. And if every browser, if every website in the world decided they now need to have a 2 gigabyte language model involved in them, your device is going to run out of space very quickly. And you're going to spend quite a lot of time waiting. So the Chrome team recognized this, and they, as an experiment, kind of came up with a prompt API for the browser. And the idea behind the prompt API is that there is a small language model behind it that does need to get downloaded, but only once, and then will be available for all applications that want to use it. And this prompt API is intended to also be quite straightforward, quite simple to use. You get a language model object, and you call create on that. That is going to, if you haven't got the model available to you, that will do the download. So that is why it's an asynchronous function. But once you have downloaded that model, you can then just call model.prompt, and it will write you a poem about cats. We can check that. Let's see if it's working. So it's running there in my browser, writing me a 4-line poem about cats. Soft paws tread, a silent grace. Emerald eyes in a sunlit space. It's beautiful, isn't it? I really should get Bubbles to read it out one time. But like, I can make it do anything, right? If I say, tell me a joke about JavaScript developers, we'll see what it says. Why do JavaScript developers wear glasses? Because they don't see sharp. Yes. That's the only punchline it's actually good at. And that's because that's an existing joke that it's managed to come up with. If you try again, it says, why did the JavaScript developer get lost? Because they didn't have any direction. I know. Nobody said that language models were funny. They're mostly not. How many JavaScript developers does it take to change a light bulb? None, it's a CSS problem. That's not bad. It's more about style. It's a hardware problem, if you ask me. But yeah, so the prompt API is cool. Like, it is a small version of a language model. It's Gemini Nano, which is the smallest version of Gemini that's available. And so, like, sometimes it's not very good, but like, if you treat it nicely, if you cajole it into the right things, you can get decent stuff out of this. Using small models, as we learned earlier, is a perfectly reasonable thing, although you can't fine-tune your Gemini Nano because it's there in the browser. But it will still do stuff like, write JavaScript to reverse a string. I don't know. It can code. Let's see what it does. Function reverse string split, reverse join. Lovely. Even gives you an example. Including the output. Ole. Yeah. So it's capable of a lot of things. And the Gemini Nano model is not bad at all. It's not funny, but other than that, it's not bad. It does have some requirements, though. So at least right now, in order to be able to download this Gemini Nano model, you need to be running Windows 10 or 11, Mac OS 13 Plus, or Linux. You need to have at least 22 gigabytes of storage space, and your device must be capable of more than 4 gigabytes of VRAM. That 22 gigabytes of storage space is not because it's going to take up that, but I think it's just because they want to be respectful of not like finishing your storage space. So the model itself is only about 2 gigabytes, and so if you are at, it will leave you with 20 always on your system, which is nice. But those are some requirements, and like right now it also doesn't work on mobile, which is a bit sad, especially for my wandering around Spain and understanding people talking Spanish to me. But that does mean there's a little bit more to that API, which is useful, right? If you have a 2 gigabyte download to deal with, and you have some requirements on it, you kind of need to know whether you can run this model right now or not. And so you can call sort of language model.availability, and that will go and check the system, see if the system is okay to use it. If it's not okay to use it, that will just return you unavailable, so you won't be able to use it. You've got to skip on past this. If it is capable of running the model, but it has not downloaded it at all, then you'll get downloadable as the answer. If you or somebody else has already started to download it, you'll get downloading as the answer. And if you are ready to use that model, available is your availability, and you're ready to go. And yeah, there is a 2 gigabyte download behind this. So if you had your users press a button and then they expect like a pretty swift response, and you're going to go download 2 gigabytes in the background, they might be wondering why it hasn't done anything for a while. And so you can pass in a monitoring function to this language model create function that allows you to measure the progress and at least display that to users. So that's nice. This is kind of the third iteration of the API that the Chrome team built, which is great because it went through a lot of early access testing with developers who wanted to try this out early and then give feedback on it. But Prompt API is a little bit controversial, right? If you've worked with different AI models from different providers, then you'll kind of know that prompting the same prompt to different models will act quite differently. And Gemini Nano is not an open source model, right? It's a proprietary model for Google. And so building in a prompt API like this with potentially, across different browsers, different models, could result in us just building applications that don't work on anything but the one browser that you tested it on, or whatever. Or a lot of kind of messing around. So it's been a bit controversial in that respect. Other browsers are not super into it. That being said, Microsoft has done a version of this in Edge using their Phi model, which is another small one. So there's still activity around it. But what happened was, during that early testing, the Chrome team talked to developers using it and worked out that there were a bunch of common problems that people were solving with this prompt API in the browser. And this led to them building some specialized models that were smaller and more focused, also quicker. It's basically, they did the fine-tuning and the distilling and the making small but cool models for us, which is kind of nice. And so, they've built to date 6 different models. The translator, which is very useful for my use case. The language detector, which is also useful. The summarizer, which kind of speaks for itself. That takes large blocks of text and summarizes it. Those 3 are actually all available today in Chrome 138. So you can, in Chrome at least, progressively enhance your application with translation or summarization if you want to. Then I actually meant to change the slide before I got on here because it turns out that our early access can go away. All these 3 are in Origin trial now. So there's a writer, so be able to sort of prompt a model to write content for you, or rewriter to kind of take content and change its style. And then the proofreader, which is kind of, I guess, trying to kill Grammarly in the browser. And those are all in Origin trial right now. I haven't actually played with writer, rewriter, and proofreader because I was working on translating instead. But go give them a go. They're in Chrome, they're behind flags, but they're there and worth playing with. And all of these kind of models, all these kind of APIs look fairly similar, right? They have the one big class object you call create on them, sometimes passing some options. So in this case with the translator, you need to create the model with the source and target language that you expect to use. And so this model, in this case, there's different models for different language translation pairs. And those models are much smaller. I think these ones tend to come around 75 to 85 megabytes, not 2 gigabytes, which is nice. It's also a pretty swift download on a decent connection. And then, so once you've created the thing, and you can call availability on this as well. Understand that. You can create it. You can get the download amounts sent to you, which is also good. And then you get your one kind of model method. In this case, on the translator, it's translate. On the prompt API, it's prompt. Pretty obvious. And so, we call, in this case, translator.create, and then we get translator.translate, and it works. And so this is it in the browser, and it's quick. It's really quick. Obviously, I've already downloaded this model, but that was pretty swift. Pretty quick. And so this is going to translate from English to Spanish. It won't go the other way, but I can change stuff in order to remind everybody that we're all going to the pub after this. Todos vamos al pub después de esto. Lovely. I'm going to copy that and use it. Sweet. We'll come back to that. Because it turns out the language detector API is also useful for my translation app, right? Because in this case, I want to be able to speak to the application in either of those languages, and thus it's got to be able to detect which one it is so it can turn it back into the other one. This one's really simple. It's even smaller than the translator models. I don't even know how big it is, but it's not very big. But like when you detect this, it comes out a bit more like a regular machine learning thing with like a probability, basically. So this is like 99.95% sure this is English, and otherwise it's undecided. But if we put in what we just translated out, I'm slightly less sure it's Spanish, but not that much. I did note that an important thing to say in the pub is una cerveza, por favor, but I use this one not just because I'd like a beer, but because sometimes it thinks it's Portuguese. It's all right, and a little bit of Romanian, I guess, maybe. Okay. But the language detector is useful, right? We can pick our most favorite possible language, and if there's like a trade-off, that's where you maybe give your user options. Be like, I think this is Spanish, but let's go for it. So what does that look like? I did build this app. It's over here. Now I'm going to make that bigger. So this application uses the web speech API to listen to me. It uses that. We actually have this input language here. So because we have to tell the speech API what language it's expecting to hear, and we have to tell the speech synthesis API what language we want it to talk in, we have to know what the input language is straight up. And so if I say, we're all going to the pub after this.
Todos vamos al pub después de esto.
Yeah, cool. So it knows what it's doing. And we can swap it around the other way and say, todos vamos al pub después de esto.
And we all go to pop after this.
Yeah, close enough. We're going to pop. Okay. Nothing's perfect. But it works, right? It works, except what I've done there is trick you all. Because I said I wanted it to work offline entirely within the browser. I said I wanted it to use only things inside the browser. And the web speech API has a dirty, dirty little secret. The dirty secret of the web speech API is that it does not happen within the browser. It is sent off to, at least in Chrome, it is sent off to Google Cloud servers, where they give you their speech-to-text API for free. Sure. Where they give you the speech they're listening. That notification says I'm in trouble. They give that speech API to you for free, but you are handing off audio from your users to Google Cloud, and there's no contracts, there's no SLAs on this. The privacy is not ideal. It's a cool feature, but it's a little bit hidden that it is not fully private. And so I was a bit sad about this until Google I/O earlier this year, where they announced that the prompt API they've been working on was graduating to become a multimodal prompt API that was able to take images and audio and do stuff with them as well. And another thing language models are good at least most multimodal ones, is transcription. It turns out they're really quite cool at that. So this multimodal prompt API, I think, still sits behind a flag in Canary, so all of this presentation is happening in Canary as well. Well, what it does is allow you to send in this case, when we create the model, we say we're going to expect some inputs, we're going to expect the audio input in this case, so get ready for that. And then when we prompt it later, we send it this kind of array of stuff with contents. And we can send it text as normal, but we can also send audio, an audio buffer in this case. And so if we actually, I think, transcribe this short audio is basically the text I use in the final application here. And the audio buffer is created by using a bunch of my other favorite web APIs, such as the media recorder API to record stuff from the microphone, and then the web audio API to take that recorded file and turn it into an audio buffer, and then we turn that to the language model. Anyway, let's see that in action. So I'm back here in the original app. I have this button that says prepare to record, and that's just because it says it's going to expect to use audio. It triggers one of those things in the browser where you have to have a user interaction before it actually allows you to do something with it. So it's prepared, and that's nice. That only needs to happen on the first go, but we've already started using it. It's fine. And now, this time around, it's going to record it. So when I press start recording, it will use the Media Recorder API to record the audio. It will turn it into an audio buffer using the Web Audio API. It will pass that to the Multimedial Prompt API to, say, transcribe this. It will then pass that to the Language Detector API to work out whether it's English or Spanish. It will then use the Translation API to translate one to the other. I will then send that to the Speech Synthesis API, which is the one I'm still using at the end of all of this because I still love bubbles. And it will speak that thing back out. And if it all works, that's quite a lot of things tied together with a couple of experimental things right in the middle. And we should all be pretty happy if it does. So I'm sticking with, let's all go to the pub later.
Vayamos todos al pub más tarde.
Right, cool. And this time around, I don't have to change, the input language input isn't helping me here. It's not being used because of that language detector API. So I can just record again and this time say, vayamos todos al pub más tarde.
Vayam de St. Paul's Pub.
No, at all. Well, yeah, that's terrible. That's just something about my accent there, really, isn't it? I probably could add into my prompt that this language is likely to be English or Spanish, translate it like that, rather than just making stuff up. That's the bit that got made up. Master Tuesday. I like it. Okay. What's the thing from my slides I said? Me fui de vacaciones a España este invierno.
I went on vacation to Spain this winter.
There we go. So it does work, and it's flipping between the languages. It's happy to translate and use all those other APIs in the way that I wanted them to.
Es feliz traducir y usar todas esas otras API en la forma en que quería que lo hicieran.
There we go. Nice. It even got my audible pauses in there. Excellent. Great. So that is using AI directly in the browser. We could have, oh my goodness, the thing I like to do with this, of course, is turn off the Wi-Fi and prove to you that, in fact, none of this, so if I refresh that page, if I prepare to record, if I start recording, none of that used the internet in order to work.
Si empiezo a grabar, nada de eso usa internet para trabajar.
Eddie, you're not as good a voice, but that's it, right? It's all offline. It all works entirely in this browser. And so that means we have a bunch of cool use cases, I think, for this. I think translating user-generated content is really cool because otherwise, like using cloud-based translation APIs can be prohibitively expensive at scale. One of my favorite things to do, one of my favorite things about old Twitter was that there was a translate button under tweets from, people, if you followed them and they didn't tweet in the same language that you can read in, you could always hit translate. And I don't think that's a thing that happens in Blue Sky because they have much less money. But if you could just build it into the browser in front of you, fantastic. I like the idea of personalization on this kind of stuff as well. I think of this in terms of user reviews. Like if you go to the reviews of any product on Amazon, it will. There's normally an AI summary at the top of like all the reviews. They're like, people liked this. They thought this was not so good. But if you happen to have put in some preferences about what you wanted out of the thing you were searching for, then the summarization could focus on your preferences and be like, no, like this bit is important to you and people liked it or didn't. And so it's personalized artificial intelligence. I really like suggesting alt text for image uploads. I think that's one use that we could absolutely put the multimodal prompt API into action for. I did build I've built an alt text kind of generator, but this one uses Langflow in the background, so you have to pay for it. You have to pay for your model use, but if you can do it inside of the browser, brilliant. And then bigger things like transcribing, translating videos. Any of that kind of user-generated content. You know how much stuff goes up on YouTube every day. We don't need to be able to, if we can translate all of that for people, fantastic. But the major one, the most important one, I think, is privacy. There is some fear around various AI things these days. Some people are all into it and some people are terrified of it. But if you can guarantee to people that like none of their voice, none of their interactions are going to be leaving their device, that is really useful. I've certainly, when I've given this talk before, people have come up to me after who work in the medical industry, which of course is hugely, privacy is hugely important in that kind of stuff. And being able to run models directly in somebody's browser without them having to download apps or specific download their own models or whatever they have to do, being able to make it available via the web is wonderful. And so it is the end of the night. Now it is your turn to go and experiment with these things. Like I said, we've got 3 of those APIs are available in the browsers today. That's the translator, the language detector, and the summarizer. And the other ones are sitting there behind flags in Origin trials, waiting for you to play around with them. The prompt API is something you can actually use inside of extensions if you want to. I think that's one of those things that allows it to specifically tie it to the Chrome browser rather than it be a web standard. So if you want to build an extension which uses Gemini Nano to prompt within other people's pages, very exciting, you absolutely can. I have a bunch of links for you. That QR code will take you to the source code of the translation app if you want to check that out. And then those links will also be in the top of the README. I know they are because I put them there today. And so that's just going to the documentation, to a bunch of other demos that the Chrome team has built for this. And of course to Langflow, because you should go try that out anyway. It's quite a lot of fun to play around with. And finally, I also, whilst you've got your phones out, I do write every 2 weeks a newsletter about AI for developers. So it's not sharing who's recently funded OpenAI. It's not sharing all the tiny little papers and model releases that come out. It's usable and actionable kind of things for building with AI today. It's every 2 weeks. It's part of the Langflow thing, but I write this, and so sign up, subscribe. I'd love that, and don't unsubscribe because I see all of those as well. Other than that, again, my name is Nash. I'm a developer relations engineer at IBM for Langflow, and thank you so much for coming tonight. I noticed we had a question at the end there, at the back there. Sorry. It sounds like you're going to be critical. No, go for it.
More of curiosity. So
yeah.
Writing stuff about AI. How much AI do you use to help you write?
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good question. Right now, none. It's ridiculous. I've meant to build. I haven't had the time, but I've meant to build myself a bookmarking app that will summarize the articles that I think are worthy of going into the thing to make it easier for me to ultimately write the newsletter. But I haven't got around to vibing that either yet. So I probably will do at some point. But maybe it needs to get things need to get quiet down over December or something for Christmas, and then I'll get time to relax and build that. So yeah, at the back there.
Yeah, with the command, the JavaScript command.
Yes.
Why need to put that over the console?
You could, yeah. You could do it in the console, yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff here. Hold on. I should already have the model equals await language model dot create, and then I can do model dot prompt. Oops, needs to await the model dot prompt. Hello, how are you? And it might take a second. It's just warming up. Hi there, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. So yeah, absolutely. You can do it anywhere you want to, as long as you've got DevTools. As long as you've got Canary to run it in, or whatever. You've got the right flags turned on. But same, you could use the translator from within DevTools as well if that was something you're interested in. Yeah. Go for it there.
Yeah, so for all in browser use cases, is it necessary to use Langflow, or what's that?
No. So the Langflow thing was merely just to show how it's nice to play around with, how you can experiment with it, but also that language models in general are good at translating. I just like to mention it because I like working on it. But Langflow does not work in the browser. It is certainly there if you want to progressively enhance by hooking into these APIs in browsers that support them, and then throwing off to the server side if you don't. Yeah, go for it.
Right now, it seems like a lot of the features for these new models are Chrome exclusive. Do you reckon it will eventually be a standardized API that's available for Chrome browser platforms?
It's always interesting to see how that works with the kind of experimental stuff. There are many things that Chrome as a team have put into the browser and have never made it to any others. Safari has a specific page on the Apple website being like, these are the things we're not going to do. And here's the reasons why. And they have okay reasons for it. They have different takes on things than Google do. And sometimes that's good and sometimes it's a shame. In terms of these AI ones, I think there's a decent chance that some of the specialized ones are more likely to land, something like a translator, language detector, summarizer. Summarizer might be more difficult, but and that's one of the reasons they pushed forward with the smaller ones, because I think they've got less pushback from other browsers on that kind of thing. Like I did say, the prompt API itself is the most controversial and is probably going to take longest to decide whether it's arriving or not. But Microsoft have been experimenting with putting the Phi model into Edge as well. I just won't have Edge on my machine, so I haven't tested it. Yeah, I mean, it's still a big bluey, and there's post-traumatic stress on that. It's fine. So yeah, hopefully, they're definitely talking about it. You can go and kind of look into the conversations if you know the right places to do so. And yeah, like, it remains to be seen what the other browser manufacturers will do. Yes, go for it.
I'm just curious about your use case if you're using sort of traditional NAN frameworks or like any sort of automation frameworks that you
Am I using NAN?
yeah, any
Yeah.
or any sort of agentic AI automation frameworks?
I mean, I'm using Langflow, which not in this example. This is all written in JavaScript inside the browser, which none of those kind of drag and drop or automation or whatever frameworks handle. But yes, when I'm outside of that, this one, it's open source. Check it out.